So for this week on Cyber School, we're hitting a culmination of the series that we've been going over the last several weeks and just kind of demystifying and understanding a paging system. And now that we've covered both IP-based paging and analog-based paging, we're working towards the culmination or hybrid paging of the combination of both IP paging and analog paging. Because as we went through over the past couple of weeks, we see that there are potential, pain points or downsides to using either analog or IP-based paging. And if you combine both of these two systems, both IP and analog-based systems, you can really capitalize on their strengths and use that to overcome any potential weaknesses that you can find in, say, a wholly IP-based system or a wholly analog-based system. So first, let's talk a little bit about combining the different strengths and just what the strengths are of both IP and analog-based paging. So to start out with analog is of course going to be more economical, just because when the speaker wire that you're using to connect all of the different speakers uses less copper and less insulation for everything, so the wires are going to be cheaper. But also the speakers are going to be a lot cheaper because all they need to do is provide the speaker and its diaphragm and its mounting and stuff. When you're buying IP speakers, you're getting all of that plus all of the different smarts in the circuit board that come on there, which really can increase the price a lot. So by leveraging analog paging and its more economical price point, it makes it really, really powerful to add that in specific areas when you're dealing with a paging system. And the best place to capitalize on that is when you need a very long or longer run length than you could potentially do with an IP-based system. And one of the limitations that you encounter with a wholly IP-based system that's using Cat5 or Cat6 cable is you've got a limit of around 100 meters, about 300 feet of run length between the actual switch and the endpoint before you start getting extreme power and data transmission corruption through that particular line to where the device might not even power up, or if it powers up, it's not going to be able to connect because it can't push that data far enough across that long of a wire. Well, when you're dealing with an analog-based system, that's not really a problem, or you can go with ridiculous run lengths with analog-based systems. So if you're dealing with a very large, say, warehouse or manufacturing facility, or even, say, like a large gymnasium or a cafeteria in some more, say, like educational systems, an IP-based system in that particular area can be really, really powerful. And the nice thing is when you combine these two together, you've got that, more economical option and you've got your longer run length. As you add in the IP-based capability, the IP-based system, you have more potential features. Whereas, kind of like I alluded to in our earlier sessions, where an analog-based speaker system makes sound. That's all it does. It's a speaker. It's just going to produce audio. Whereas an IP-based system can do that, and it can also do a whole bunch more in terms of, say, like health check capability and more notifications out of a particular system than just generating sound. And the nice thing with an IP-based system and more IP-based endpoints over, say, just a few to incorporate just an entire analog-based system is you get more support and more capability of different emergency notification software suites like we spoke about last week with platforms like Single Wires Informacast or Intrado's Synapse Revolution. So by combining these two, you can get a lot more capability out of the system and really capitalize on the strengths of both particular avenues of paging. So why would you even want to consider something like this now that we've gone through this? Of course, as I mentioned, analog paging really has a much longer run length where it's not even really going to be a problem for some of these larger warehouses or manufacturing facilities. Ethernet is, relatively short in terms of these big areas, which means you've got to have multiple different network closets or multiple switches throughout the different facility, or you have to have, say, coaxial to Ethernet style adapters to run particular lengths. And that all adds up because that's, a tech piece for every one of those points. And that can get, a little pricey as compared to, say, doing analog in these particular areas. And because of that, analog paging is just going to be substantially more economical when you compare it to IP-based paging. But, IP-based paging is leagues better when you're dealing with zoning, just because each individual device, depending on the suite that you're using to actually get the notification out to the individual endpoint, say if it's something like regular multicast or SIP-based paging, or even an emergency notification software suite, such as Informacast or Synapse Revolution, you get a lot more granularity and zoning, which is just hands down better than what you can get with an analog-based system. And with an IP-based system, you can add a lot more features over time. So by combining these two, you're getting a more economical option, potentially an easier option to install, and not losing all of the things like zoning capability and feature sets that you can get with an IP-based system. But this really comes into how you combine the two systems together, because on their own, in individual systems, in silos, it can be very complicated to get these two to play nicely. So there's one particular way that can make it really, really easy to go and incorporate the two systems together. And that's in dealing with an analog-based system as a single zone. So if we refer back to, the different ways that I've spoken about how to incorporate these systems, when you're dealing with an analog-based system, you want to keep it as a single zone. So say, for example, you've got, several different warehouses. I don't know, say 3 warehouses, and you could have each warehouse be its own individual zone where there is not specific paging areas in that one warehouse. If you want to make a page to say warehouse A, that's all you can do. You can page warehouse A. You can't page, shipping and receiving in warehouse A. You can only page warehouse A. And that makes it very, very easy to incorporate an analog-based paging system into a hybrid-based system, because you're not trying to deal with the zoning capabilities of those particular warehouses. Say, for example, you did want to zone those a little bit better, IP would be better. But if you keep analog compressed to a single zone where you're dealing with, say, the warehouse only, manufacturing only, the cafeteria only, or something like that in a school environment, and keeping that compartmentalized to a single zone really allows you to capitalize on the strengths of an analog-based system, because you don't have to deal with all the complexities of dealing with that in an IP-based paging system. So you keep it to basically a single amplifier and a series of speakers for whatever environment you're going to be putting that into, which just allows you to really build on the strengths of the particular system. And then when you're dealing with areas that require zoning, so say, for example, classrooms, or office areas or something like that, where you might want the individual granularity and specific zoning of, say, paging only through kindergarten, first and second grade, or only offices on, say, the first floor, the second floor, or what have you, or even specific areas, say just the sales floor and not the technical support area. You're going to want to go IP based for that particular area, just to be able to zone that capability in more ways than you could with an analog-based system. And to do that, we would, of course, recommend, if you're going to be paging in that type of scenario with these different zones, both an analog single zone and then multiple IP-based zones, you're going to want to use something like the SIP paging server to control these different zones, just so that way you've got the multicast capability to page to all these different areas. But if you're going to be utilizing one of the multitude of different third-party notification software suites, such as SingleWire's Informacast or Intrado's Synapse Revolution, you have that capability to tie those in there to be able to handle the zoning that way. So that way you still get all of the zoning capability and the strengths of the analog in areas where you want to offset cost a little bit, and you only need that single zone capability. So where out of the different places can you really use the hybrid paging option? It's not really going to be right for different applications. There are absolutely some instances where hybrid paging is probably not going to be the right option, and that's going to be places where you really need very, very fine granularity to paging zones, and you're not dealing with, say, a large single zone paging area such as a manufacturing, warehouse, or education. And honestly, it really kind of depends on the particular layout that you're dealing with. If you've got areas where you've got large single zone paging capabilities as you're discussing your design, you might consider doing something that's hybrid in particular areas to really offset cost. But in some areas, it really doesn't work. It's going to depend on the particular facility and the system layout and the desired outputs and capabilities of the system that you're going to be working with. So all in all, hybrid paging is a really, really good, clean option, and combining these two together can both IP and analog paging paging can really give you a lot of different strengths of both particular systems. When you combine them together, you can capitalize on both and cancel out the weaknesses of each. When you're going to be dealing with the large single zone areas, you're talking a gigantic manufacturing warehouse where, say, they might be building buses, or a very, very large facility, so it's all going to be treated as a single zone. Do analog in that area just because it's going to be absolutely cheaper. But when you're dealing with, say, the office area or the sales floor of that same facility, do IP in that area. So that way you have that zoning capability, and combine these two together with a product like the SIP paging server to be able to bridge the gap and create that true hybrid paging capability.
Thank you for watching this edition of Cyber School. If you have any questions, please get in contact with our sales department. They are available by email at sales@cyberdata.net or by phone at 831-373-2601 extension 334. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this from CyberData.